Okay. We're going to have plenty more trickling in, but we have a lot to get through today. Very exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome to our February Youth Partnership Spotlight and an exciting conversation with the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project today. My name is Mark Helk, and I'm excited to be joining you from the Stoneleigh Foundation for this discussion. I'll also be our moderator for today. If you are unfamiliar with Stoneleigh, our organization funds fellowships for those working at the intersection of youth justice, child welfare, health, and education, with the goal of improving life for young people, primarily in Philadelphia. We're also thrilled to support a cohort of youth partnership organizations that are all youth-led or youth-centric and committed to growing leadership and advocacy for young people in Philadelphia. Our conversation today is focused on sharing the incredibly important work that our youth partners at YASP are doing in this field. Before I welcome our speakers, we will have time today at the end for audience questions. If you have a question for any of our YASP speakers, you can submit them to us at any time through the Q&A button, with the rest of the buttons on your Zoom screen. If you do that, please include your name and organization. That's critical just so that we can better respond to your question when we get to that section of today's presentation. So now I'm excited to introduce our guests from YASP today, including Sarah Morris, YASP Director, Mai Lee, its Youth Hub Coordinator, Jetson Cruz and Zakir Mercer, both Youth Hub Fellows, Kempis Ghani Songster, YASP's Healing Futures Program Manager, Felix Rosado, the Healing Futures Coordinator, and Hannah Mason, a Stoneleigh Emerging Leader Fellow hosted by YASP. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So to get us started, Sarah, let's start with you. For those of us in our audience who've never heard of YASP before, can you start us off by telling us briefly about the organization, its mission, and major programs?
Sure. Thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone who's here with us today. I'm Sarah again. I'm the director of the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project. So the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project, YASP, is an organization that's grounded in youth leadership and that is building youth power to end youth incarceration and working to create healing and accountability-based models of responding to harm and violence in our communities. YASP has been around since 2006, so closing in on 2 decades. We were started by 4 young people who had themselves been incarcerated when under 18, been incarcerated in Philadelphia's adult jails, as well as myself. The 5 of us started YASP after meeting through some art and poetry workshops happening in the Philadelphia adult jails. And we basically decided to create an organization that would continue to run creative arts workshops every week for young people who are being held pretrial in Philadelphia's adult jails, and also build a movement to challenge the laws, which are known as direct file laws that allow children to be prosecuted as adults in Pennsylvania, and also to build a larger youth movement and to be paying young people primarily to be doing the work of challenging the systems that lead to youth incarceration. We've been doing that work, as I said, for about 17, 18 years now. We've grown a lot over that time. We have a much larger staff now. We have some of our incredible staff on here today and many more folks who aren't with us today. Currently, we have 4 main program areas. The first is our creative arts workshops, which we still do every week in the Philadelphia jails. We also now do weekly workshops in JJSC, the city's juvenile detention facility. We have our second program area is our Youth Participatory Defense Hub, which Mai and some of our other team are going to speak more about later, which supports young people and families navigating the court system. And our Youth Hub Fellowship that we'll also share a little bit about, where we train young people, new generations of young people to lead this work. Our third program area is our Healing Futures Restorative Justice diversion work, which Felix and Ghani and Hannah will share more about later, where we do restorative justice processes that keep young people entirely out of the carceral system. And then our last sort of big program area is our advocacy and organizing work, through which youth leaders in YASP are working to challenge the laws that allow children to be charged as adults in Pennsylvania, and more broadly, the many different local and statewide policies that over-incarcerate and over-police young people of color in Pennsylvania, and specifically in Philadelphia. So that's kind of big picture overview of what we do, and I'll turn it back to you, Mark, so we can hear more of the specifics.
Thank you, Sarah. And that was a fantastic overview, I think, of all of YASP's programs. And so to highlight, how this is different from a traditional nonprofit, Mai, could you tell us a little bit more about how it's different, how YASP is different, and how young people are part of shaping YASP and its work?
Yes, thanks, Mark. So YASP is different from other traditional nonprofits because we focus on youth led. So a lot of young people in our organization is leading this work that we're doing. That's what makes us different because a lot of organizations has like that I've noticed like a lot of adults are leading these organizations instead of having the young people lead it. Also, the young people in our organizations shaping our organization because we're building like leadership into these young people as they're coming on to doing this organizing work with us, and we're building their leadership. Even myself, like speaking for myself, I built a lot of leadership work within the past 6 I've been working with YAS. So us building that in our young people, the leadership, they're able to lead our organization now, building like a lot of different skills over the few years of them working and building the leadership. So a lot of skills is being implemented into our young people to help guide us into this work.
Thank you, Mai. And then finally, round out our intro here for Jetson. Can you tell us a little bit more about the advocacy campaigns that YAS was working on right now?
Yes, our main campaign right now, I would say, is ending direct file. I think it was December, if I'm not mistaken. Me, Zakir, and Ghani, and a few other members from different organizations, we went to Harrisburg to try to get legislators to pass the bill. It's House Bill 1381, and I think that's so important because I myself was incarcerated at a young age. I was incarcerated when I was 16, and mentally it harmed me a lot. And I went through a lot by being incarcerated for 7 years straight. So and then direct file I think is a big thing, and I don't think it get enough light.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Jetson. So now like I said, we have a lot to get to today. I want to get into a little bit more detail now about how YASP supports young people, particularly those who are currently incarcerated or otherwise navigating the legal system. So Maya and Zakir, this one is for you. Can you tell us then about YASP's excuse me, I can't speak today, Youth Participatory Defense Hub, particularly what is the hub? What makes it unique, and how does it support young people and families navigating the court system?
Thanks, Mark. So the Participatory Defense Hub is originally started back in 2019 of April. Me and a couple other young people and Sarah and our old co-director, like we all started this hub together. We all had trained by Silicon Valley Debug in California. That's where they're from. They're a national organization that trains a lot of hubs around the nation. But specifically, we're like the only youth hub in the whole nation when we first started. So that's what made us unique as well. Like our hub, like we were the first youth hub that started. So that's where we originally started from. And this hub basically focuses around supporting young people navigating the system. A lot of young people are, having their first arrest and not understanding anything about their court process or anything. So this is like very helpful, like space for their families and themselves to come get support from us. We do court support, showing the judge and like everybody that they have a community behind them to support them with their case, and how they're part of our community. And we also do a lot of resources. So a lot of times young people who are bailed out or, are out here needing support in school, jobs, or anything like that, we help support in any resources that they need and their families need. Including like therapy as well. Like that's one of the main resources a lot of them need. Also, we do a lot of like helping them navigate like what part of the system they're at. Like a lot of times, like when from speaking for myself as well, like I had a case and I had to go through preliminary hearings and everything, and I didn't understand anything that was going on. That's my first time having this arrest. So, showing these young people like what each step of their court process is and what court date this is for, like showing them what each of those are, is like very like vital for their case because like they get to understand more on what's going on with their case. We also do like any kind of support with their lawyers. A lot of time we're working with young people and their lawyers. They're not really um in contact with their lawyers like that. Sometimes these lawyers don't come see them as often. Sometimes they're not really communicating with them. So we support them. And sometimes they also don't feel comfortable talking to their lawyers by themselves. They don't know what kind of questions they should be coming up with to ask their lawyers. on how they can help their case. So we support with all of that stuff when it comes to their case. But yeah, that's a little bit about what the hub does.
That's great. Thank you,
Okay.
Maya. Sakir, is there anything you wanted to add to that answer?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, I want to speak on myself being when I first started the hub, how they supported me, they made sure I talked to my lawyer, made sure that I knew what my court date was, made sure that I got to court on time. If I needed any support letters, like they got them for me. If I needed anybody to come to court, if my mom couldn't come, I know Sarah came for me, Gabby came for me. So basically, like they help us a lot. Being like Ma says, youth led, like going to a court appointed um program, is ran by all adults, So like we not really getting they don't understand what we going through. For me, because they older than us, so like for us to be youth led, we and everybody going through the same thing, we all could understand each other. So yeah. So that's what I had to say.
That's fantastic. And before we move on to the next question, I just want to emphasize here, because we have some audience members who are not as familiar with the legal system, but the difference between a lawyer and the Youth Hub, and how the Youth Hub, if I understand it correctly, is made up of community members. It's made up of folks who have already gone through the process and have that experience and knowledge and advice that they can share with people who are either doing it for the first time or just don't understand the system as well as folks who are part of the hub, where you might have an attorney is always helpful, but there are several attorneys that just don't have the time or the resources that a community hub can provide. It's a different kind of support than what you might see if you were just appointed, a public defender otherwise. So if there's nothing to be said about that piece of it, then Jet,
Can
I want to
I,
move on to
Mark?
you. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I just wondered, thank you for highlighting that. And that's part of why we call it participatory defense, is because it's about supporting people and participating in their own defense and not, having more agency in the system, not just being impacted by the system and at the mercy of the system. I just wondered, Zakir, since you recently joined our social bio video team, one thing that we do at the hub is make videos about young people. I just wondered if you wanted to share a little bit more about what
Right.
role social bio videos play at the hub.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so basically I joined the social bio team. Basically is a camera crew. Like say if I was to get incarcerated and I was looking at maybe 5 years or so, yes, the social bio team will make a video, go to your home basically to talk to your parents, to see the real you, like to see how you is, not from just off your charges, but outside of from the court system, because a lot of people make mistakes, and the judges don't see that. So we make the videos so the judge can see how this person really is outside of what he's being charged with. So maybe that can help him get maybe like me a 1 year sentence from getting 5 years, So it works. It helps a lot for our youth, and it's helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you might have said this already, but right, the amount of time that a judge gets with one person that they're trying can be extremely short, right? And so the video helps them get a fuller picture
Yeah,
of
right. And we don't try to make the video too long. We try to get everything in there, and probably like we want to make the video at least 10 to 15 minutes, so it won't be like a long video. But we'll still make sure we get everything in there that needs to be said or known to about this person.
Absolutely,
Hey,
thank
Mark,
you.
can I add something
Yeah,
too?
of course.
So how we measure our impact too through our hub is by basically, a lot of times in the jails, they call it time served. So we call it time saved. So the amount of time we're saving young people from spending those time in the jails. So like say for example, like a young person, they're facing like 11 to 22, we can save that by when the work that we put in, we save that time and they only spend about 1.5 years to like 3 years as an example. So we measure the time that we save from that, from the 1122 to what they actually got. That's how we measure like, time saved instead of being time served.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really critical component of this. So then, Jet, let's move on to you then. So, let's talk a little bit more about what YASP does to support incarcerated people, specifically young people. and why it's important, right? The work that you all do to provide art and other means of self-expression to this group, the incarcerated youth.
We help them, for example, I excuse me. I go. We have a program called Mod 3. We go to the jails and we go to JJSC where they get in charge of juveniles. We go to State Road where they actually get in charge of adults, and we go in there and we get them workshops to do artwork. They could write music, poetry, anything to express themselves, and we try our best to be a mentor to them, guide them in the right direction, be there for them. It's hard being incarcerated for anybody, let alone the youth. So we just go in there and let them express themselves the best that they can, and be there for them.
I appreciate that. And if Jed, if I could ask you one follow-up question, right? Why art? Why not math? Why not literacy? Why not something else? What is it about art that's so, so important to give to the people that are in these detention centers?
Because art, everybody has their own mind for it. Everybody has their own definition for it. Art can be different to anybody. And like I said, we let them be themselves. So with art, they can like whatever they want to put their mind to. You can do this, you can do that, you can do this, and we gonna support it. We gonna help you. And like I said, just try to be a mentor to them. So we can do math and everything, but we try our best to let them be the best version of themselves.
Of course, absolutely, absolutely. So then before we move on to talking about, youth power and leadership, is there anything anyone else wants to say about either the hub or the workshops that are done, in State Road at JJSC? All right. So then moving on, like I was just saying, so your team is not only committed to supporting young people, with art workshops and other, kind of community resources, but to also building their power and leadership. So Sarah, Jetson, and Zakir, this one is for you. You've mentioned in our conversations how critical the Youth Hub Fellowship is to this piece of your work. Can you tell our audience more about that fellowship, just particularly who's eligible for the fellowship? What do they do once they're in the fellowship? And how does the fellowship, serve them in this capacity?
Yeah, I can start and then I'll turn it over to Jet and Zakir. The fellowship basically we started 3 years ago. We've always, young people who have been part of our workshops have joined YASP to work for us and help lead this work. And as we've grown, we wanted to figure out more of a regular pathway for young people who were coming home from the jail workshops or had come to the hub for support to then be learning about the work we do and joining our team. So we created the Hub Fellowship. Our first cohort began in 2020. And it's basically a year-long leadership training program where young people learn how to run the hub. They learn how to do organizing work. They learn about movement history, transformative justice, restorative justice. And it's kind of like a pathway to create new leaders in this work that we're doing. We're currently in our third cohort of the Hub Fellowship. It's usually 8 to 10 young people at a time. And any young person, when we have application processes, any young person in Philadelphia can apply, but it's really geared towards, and we really prioritize young people who've been directly impacted by the carceral system. So most of our Hub Fellows either came to us first as young people coming to the Participatory Defense Hub for support with their own case, or as young people who are participating in our workshops that Jet was talking about at JGSC or in the adult jails on State Road. So that's kind of the background of how we started the fellowship. And Jet and Zakir are both current fellows. Zakir is what we call a fellow elder. He's on his way to graduating from the fellowship soon. So maybe I'll turn it over Zakir first if you want to share a little bit about what the fellowship has been like for you, and then we can turn it back to Jetson.
Yes, so I want to speak on my experience. Like I said, it is youth led, so we not Sarah and Gabby and everybody. They really want to be more out the way and let us lead it, for each other, so we can learn each other more. Like it helps with a lot of people because we got some people that don't like speaking publicly, so we do trainings on doing public speaking, so people don't gotta be nervous when they see a lot of people to speak, because at one point in time I was nervous to speak. Now I went to Harrisburg, to go speak to legislators, with Jetson and Ghani. Yeah, like we do a lot of training. Like again, the social bio video, we got added 2 more members to our team. I mean, and Emmett to our fellows that's in the hub too. So now we getting to learn more about computers, computers, cameras, like we learn how to edit, put videos in this place, how to set like the mic up and put it with the video and match it up and stuff like that. So like we actually doing a lot of training so we could not just worry about the core system, but also have skills for the outside world. So we won't just be out here confused and stuff like that. So yeah, I want if Justin got something to say, I'll pass it to Justin.
Yeah, I was actually about to say the same thing. Like, it teaches us skills not only for inside of our work or what we do for the outside world too. Like, it help us be leaders and be able to teach the next person and all type of things. Like, I was part of one of the workshops in the jail when I was incarcerated, and when I came home, they supported me, stayed in contact the whole time, and now I'm a part of the Hub Fellowship, and it's just helping me be more comfortable with things that I didn't think that I would be doing. I would have never thought I'd have went to Harrisburg to speak to any legislators, and being a part of the Hub Fellowship made me more comfortable with that, got me more open. Uh, teaching me about resources that we have in our community and stuff like that. Like Zakir said, helping to get to know each other better. There's all type of things, all type of areas that it helps on.
Yeah, and like it do help with bonding because like we do like we paused the hub for a second for a little while, and while we took that break, we was helping our new fellows because we had got a bunch of new fellows, so we was helping them basically train how to do each role. You gotta search people docket up to see where they got court because maybe the person that's coming to get support, he don't know what court date he got, or he don't know his judge name, stuff like that. So we basically training our youth fellows to search that up so if they don't know that we know, and so basically we had our first hub yesterday, and everybody there, and I don't think Sarah or nobody really had a rule like to that was in the meeting. It was all youth led. Everybody that was in the youth fellowship had a role, and we did an excellent job. Like we didn't get no hiccups. We did excellent. Like that's what I can say. It helps a lot. Like we do a lot of training to help us focus more. Get better skills and stuff like that. So yeah.
And I could also say that it gives you insight into the side of the families and stuff like that. Like we only everybody got their own shoes, but being a part of her fellowship, you see how things like directly impact family members, moms, dads, siblings, and stuff like that, and help us try to help them.
Absolutely. Thank you both. So this next question is for Maya and Sarah, but Chet and Zakir, please feel free to jump in. You just talked a lot about like all the professional training and development and experience that you get as being a part of the fellowship. But Hub Fellows are not just learning, they're also contributing. So Maya and Sarah, could you tell us a little bit more about how Fellows contribute to not only YASP's mission, but the surrounding community and overall, right, your fight for social change?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I would say I'm glad we kind of started this Hub Fellowship because in the beginning, when we only had about like 5 of us as like youth organizers, me coming on and like having other new people come on, it's hard to just jump straight into the work. So we having the Hub Fellowship there to basically train them into all the organizing skills that they would need, like facilitation, how to hold spaces with like families that's like really impacted. So it's like very like I feel like it made such a big change in our organization when we started this Hub Fellowship. Um, we focused on like so many different trainings for these young people, and I feel like that's very like critical into this work. Because when I jumped into this work, it was like I had to like learn as I was going, which was pretty cool. But having that fellowship there for like these young people, like, and they were much younger than me too. When I started working with Yes, I was like 19. So like other young people that we have in our organization that I was like 15, 14. So having that fellowship there is very good for them, like as far as like getting all the trainings that they would need on how to become an organizer, you know. But they are like basically using those skills and like jumping into like other work as far as like the older fellows, like some of them that are graduated, there are part-time youth organizers now. So a lot of them are tapping into different programs in our organization. So it's really like it's like watching a butterfly, I mean a caterpillar turn to a butterfly, having them start as like a health fellow and now they're graduated and now they're part-time youth organizer with us, watching them tap into all these different programs that we have and just watching them grow into like an organizer. So it's pretty cool to watch and see young people grow into.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can add to that. Like I've only been a part of the fellowship for this is my first quarter. I've been there for maybe 6 to 8 months, I want to say, and like I've been learning as I go, and it's things that I would have never been able to say that I know how to do, or I wouldn't be able to teach other people. And just being here is like showing me a lot. Like I would have never been able to talk to any legislators if it wasn't for this organization. And the fact that they trusted me in doing that is proof that they see that the progress I've been making since I've been here.
Absolutely. Sarah, anything to add? You look like you were getting ready to speak.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I feel like everyone really covered it. I think I would just also lift up that, while the fellowship is about like building up young people's skills to be part of the leadership of this organization down the line, to be on our youth leadership team potentially to help to become youth organizers with YASP. Also, while they're in the fellowship, our fellows are like deeply involved in all of our campaign planning, all of our thinking about, like, as Jet was talking about, our campaign to end direct file is whenever we're going to Harrisburg or we're thinking about whether we support a bill, like we have those conversations with our hub fellows. We spent over the past 3 years with some partner organizations. We were a part of building up the Care Not Control Coalition to fight to end youth incarceration statewide, and our hub fellows were deeply involved in all of our work around building and supporting that campaign. So the hub fellows are also very actively involved in guiding the decisions that we make and the work we do. Jet spoke at City Council a few weeks ago about the ski mask ban and talked to an NBC reporter about it the other day. So all of the work in resisting youth incarceration that we do here, the hub fellows play a role in at the same time.
Yeah, I want
Go ahead.
to about the community and the fight for social change. I feel like it is a change. Like our program is a change because when I was coming to YAS, it was taking me from being outside, having extra time on my hands to get in trouble. So like our youth fellows, when they was out there getting in trouble before they knew about the program, now that they come into the program every Tuesday, Thursday, and stuff like that, Wednesday, like they could come in any other day, it's taking them from being outside, having extra time on their hands to, be getting in trouble to be ever again in the Christmas, So I do feel like it do get a change in some way, like.
And
Yeah.
you was about to say something, Ma?
Yeah, thanks, Jet. So I was about to include about youth executive action committee. I just want to bring that up real quick. I know I didn't mention that, but it's a youth leadership body that we are just trying to lift up off the ground with me and two other young people in the organization. We also trying to basically include like all like the graduated fellows into our youth leadership body, and the youth leadership body is building leadership, like it's showing young people how to become leaders and how to build their leadership, because the leadership body is basically acting as a co-director right now for YAS, because we only have one co-director as of right now. So having that leadership body and them being able to act as a co-director is building a lot of leadership into these young people. Like even myself, like it's building my leadership still because I'm 24, but now that we're taking this off the ground, we recently just built our draft of like how it would look, our proposal. So now we're adding like other young fellows into there. So it's gonna be like a lot of changes into YAS. I'm excited to see as well just how this leadership will look. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'll just pause this for a moment here to say, we're going through a lot of this pretty quickly just because YAS was so much amazing work that they're doing. So please, if you have questions about anything, submit those through the Q&A button down below. We're also recording this and we can share out resources after the fact. So if you have any questions, you want to learn more about any of this, put it in the Q&A and we'll make sure that we get back to you on that as well. And the second thing I'll say is, I think Stoneleigh really appreciates the work that YASP is doing, just with the commitment to, putting young people in positions of leadership and actually committing to giving them, some authority to try to work on things over at YASP. We see a lot of other organizations where they're, afraid to let young people speak to, other people in the sector, whether it's legislators or other advocates, or to put them in other decision-making capacities, just because of, there's a fear there of, well, what if this young person's not ready? What if they fail? What if they make the wrong decision? And I think you all are like an exemplary, example of a way to do this right and really commit to it and the benefits that can result from that. So I just wanted to put that out there, and then I'll transition us over to our next topic, which is that you all have a really exciting model for responding particularly to youth violence, which I think is something that a lot of folks in our community are concerned about, just because of everything that has come up in the news. So your team has talked about building the importance of developing a model that is based in restorative justice for responding to youth violence. So Ghani, this question is for you. Could you tell us how restorative justice, kind of what it is, right? We probably have audience members who've never heard of restorative justice before, what it is and how it differs from the traditional, historical criminal legal system approach.
Thank you, Mark. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Campus Songster. A lot of my colleagues and friends call me Ghani. Serve as the inaugural program manager of YASP's Healing Futures, which is our restorative justice diversion program, proudly the first in the city of Philadelphia for young people. Thank you for this opportunity, by the way, Mark and Stoneleigh, to share about the work we've been doing to address situations of harm caused by young people in Philadelphia. And this is a crucial dimension of YASP's advocacy on behalf of young people, not just advocating for the ending of jailing and imprisonment of young people, but advocating for a more restorative and transformative approach to harm caused by young people. And so, to answer your question, restorative justice is a term that was coined in 1970 to basically to describe or identify processes that indigenous people, of this land and from other parts of the world have used to address harm for millennia. And while restorative justice is used to identify circle processes, right? Circle processes are not limited to addressing harm, but can also be used to build or reaffirm and reinforce community, family, and just relationships in general. You could actually use it in the workplace, actually, too. But for the purposes of our conversation here today, restorative justice is a way to address harm and trespasses, between human beings. And the differences are so stark between restorative justice and what's called the criminal justice system model, or what might be more aptly called the criminal legal or criminal punishment or colonial punishment system model, that it's not even just a difference, it's an antithesis between the two. And here's how restorative justice and the criminal punishment system are different or antithetical to one another. In restorative justice, there's a central focus on relationships, right? Respect, responsibility, repair, right? And reintegration of both the responsible person and the harmed person back into the community. Whereas in the criminal legal system or criminal punishment model, a central focus is on law and order, criminalization, guilt, punishment, removal from the community, and maybe even condemnation. For restorative justice, when a harm happens, it's looked at as a violation of the law and the state. In restorative justice, a harm is a violation of people, or it's a violation of human beings and relationships. For the criminal legal system, violations create guilt, all right? When you hurt someone, you're obligated, you're indebted to making things right as possible. You're obligated to, as much as possible, repair that harm. In the criminal legal model, justice requires that the state determine guilt, impose pain, punishment, so on and so forth. In restorative justice model, justice involves persons harmed and the responsible parties and the community members all working together in an effort to repair the harm and put things right. Not just right between the two parties that's involved in the harm, but put things right in the community at large. And again, the central focus in the criminal legal or criminal punishment model is, offenders, getting what they deserve. Whereas in the restorative justice or healing justice model, the focus is on persons harmed needs and those needs being met, and on the responsible party getting what they need to explore accountability and repair the harm and make things right as much as possible. And so that's basically the gist of how we view restorative justice and how that translates into the work that we do. It's a very strengths-based, relationship-based approach to addressing harm and supporting our young people in exploring accountability and atoning for that harm.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yanni. That was a fantastic summary of restorative justice as a whole. And so then for Felix, how does the Healing Futures program, YASP specific restorative justice program work? In particular, who is eligible and how do they enroll?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Stoneleigh. I just want to apologize in advance. My connection seems to be a little unstable, so let me know if I cut out at all. So Healing Futures is a youth restorative justice diversion program. We get our referrals from the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office of young people who've been arrested for a variety of different harms. We reach out to them and their caregivers, set up an enrollment meeting and explain the process to them with the hopes that they enroll. Once they do, we start to work with the young person for a few weeks to prepare them for what we call a restorative community conference. While we're doing that, we also reach out to the person harmed in whatever the situation was and work with them to see if they're interested in participating and ultimately preparing them for the RCC as well. So once we do all that work, we bring everyone together in a circle to talk about what happened, to give the person harmed an opportunity to describe the impact of the harm, for the young person's family to talk about what all this has been like for them. And then we turn it over to the young person themselves to offer an apology, to answer any questions. And then we open up the floor for the community members who we invite and the facilitators to throw a few words in. And once we feel like we're at a good place, we turn our attention to developing a restorative plan. And so this is a concrete action that the young person then has to do to, as we like to say, put things more right. And it's usually some kind of volunteering in the community. It's not meant to be punitive. It's meant to be something that the young person can benefit from and that benefits the person harmed and the community. So we'll all decide on what that needs to look like. This is completely a community-based approach, an attempt to come up with a solution, to right the wrong, to restore the balance that was disrupted by the harm. And once they complete it, we close the case. We let the district attorney's office know the charges get declined. It's as if they were never arrested and they get to go on with their lives successfully and without the stain of a criminal record or the trauma of having spent any time inside a cage. After that, we throw a community celebration for the young person, and we invite whoever they want to come, as many members of the Healing Futures team as possible. and we affirm the young person. We reflect on the experience, what was learned, what was gained, and we give them a plaque, something, a tangible object that they can always have with them to remind them that they completed something, that they were accountable. And we're also celebrating the
Felix, I think this is where we might have lost you. If you turn off your camera, you might be able to start. I think we lost you after celebrating. And if we don't get you back,
we dream, huh?
I think we lost you right after celebrating. So if I could ask you just to repeat yourself, you've been great, but your line cut out just right there.
Yeah. So did you hear about what the celebration looks like?
A little bit, yeah.
So we bring together the young person, whoever they want to come, and some community members and as many members of the Healing Futures team as possible to celebrate this young person. We give them a plaque. We leave them with a tangible item to remind them of the experience. And we're also celebrating the fact that the community came together and dared to do something different than what is currently offered and labeled justice. And so we're working a lot of cases at the same time at all different stages in the process. And we're a small team. And we dream of a world where we don't have to get our referrals from the district attorney's office and we're taking them straight from the community. We're also working towards a city that will send us cases of cases are not eligible for diversion if they involve a gun or some type of serious violence. We're trying to make the case that, those cases are the ones that would benefit the most from this kind of process and not the least. So I'll leave it there. And of course, we're open to any questions. I know that was a lot of detail, a lot of nuance.
Perfect. That was perfect. Thank you, Felix.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so then I think one of the things that people first think about when they think about restorative justice for the first time is, well, what about the person who was harmed? And I know you talked a little bit about it, but now I want to turn to Hannah and talk, if you could tell us a little bit more about how does this program specifically, work with people who were harmed, particularly people who were harmed by young people, and what benefits do hurt people get from participating in this process?
Great, thank you, Mark. First, just want to say also thank you to Stoneleigh for having this webinar about all of our work, but also hosting me as a fellow and connecting me with the work at YASP. And so as part of my fellowship, I will be writing about the work of Healing Futures, how it can be expanded throughout the city. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But it was important for me to understand this process and to be trained as a facilitator of this process. And so as such, I'm currently co-facilitating a case in which we are taking both the person responsible and the person harmed through their own kind of simultaneous processes. And so what Healing Futures is able to do versus the traditional, criminal justice system is that we're able to hold that space for the person harmed and also, have sessions with them and talk to them about, what are your values? What are the things that you need? How can we connect you to resources to make sure that you feel comfortable to when we're at the time that we have something called the restorative community conference, when are you able to actually face this person who's harmed you and be able to hear their apology and also be able to articulate the things that you felt and experienced in a way that they're able to also hold space for. And so that's one of the important differences. Also, persons harmed can be, as involved as they'd like throughout the process. So we've had times where folks are saying, I'm good, actually. You can, I'm glad that this young person is in the program. That's enough for me. I want to be hands off. Sometimes there are people who just want to hear the apology or receive an apology letter. But we've also had cases where the person harmed and the person responsible develop strong relationships and are able to kind of continue together and building some kind of relationship. And so that's not something that you often get to see. I feel like it gives the person who's been harmed a lot more agency to feel like they can also have a voice in how this story ends, what justice might look like, and how all parties can be made whole throughout this process.
Thank you, Hannah. And we're going to get to, audience questions one more time. So I'm just going to say, one last time, put your questions in if you have them. We'll have about 10 minutes here to go through as many questions as possible. But if we don't get to your question, we can always follow up with you after the fact. So don't worry about that there. Last question before we get to audience Q&A, and this is for anyone on the Healing Futures team, and I think you've talked about this a little bit already. So let me know if you want to say more. How is this program in particular changing what's possible for the young people who've committed harm? How can it change the broader landscape of how we respond to youth violence, particularly in Philadelphia? Again, just emphasizing like how it's different from the traditional way that we've done things, because I don't think we can emphasize that enough.
Thanks, Mark. One of my favorite accounts is from one of our very first cases when we launched our program back in May of 2021. We received a case a couple of weeks after that involved 5 young people who had assaulted a young lady on a City Hall train station on the platform. Two of the young people had active cases, so they were ineligible for referral. One of the young people was in flight, and when they found her, we had agreed that we would take her, but she had gotten another case. By the way, this young person was 17, was a mother herself, and she herself was in the dependency system. So 2 of the young people was referred to us, and the person harmed agreed to participate. And it's always ideal when the person harmed agrees to participate, because then you can really see the healing process work. You can see the reconciliation process work. And I remember at the RCC, the person harmed, she addressed the 2 boys and she told them, when you were stomping me on the train station and I was in the fetal position, I wasn't really concerned about. First of all, when I went to the lineup, and I was more distraught when I saw that my assailants were children more than I was distraught about the injuries you inflicted on me. And when I was on the platform, on the floor, in the fetal position, as you stomped me, I was less concerned about the damages to my face and to my body you were inflicting, more concerned about what was going to happen to my daughter, my 1-year-old daughter at the time, who I was going home to see, to pick up. What would happen if I fell on the train tracks, broke my neck, got paralyzed, ran over by a train, electrocuted, whatever? Who would take care of my daughter? And she faced them as she said this. And she brought her daughter with her to the RCC, the conference. And then she said also, had you done what you did to me a year prior, I would have been pregnant and you would have had another problem on your hands. And so the young boys hung their heads low and they offered an apology that was totally off script from what they had prepared on paper over the weeks of their involvement in the program. Anyway, she only asked that the young boys volunteer for 4 hours a week for 6 months at an organization that helps people to heal from violence, or a victims advocacy organization. And one of the young boys volunteered in an organization, one of the premier victims advocacy organizations in the city. And instead of doing 4 hours a week, of his own volition, he started doing 7 hours a week. And whereas his restorative plan, the duration was to be only 6 months, he ended up doing 18 months. He's still, matter of fact, he's still an ambassador on that organization's youth committee, doing neighborhood cleanups and so on and so forth. But nothing buoyed my spirits more than when Sarah, our own Sarah here, showed us a video of this young person marching on 52nd Street against gun violence. And so he started to discover his leadership voice. He became empowered as a community servant and an ambassador against violence, and also his activist voice. And he's also quoted in the Business Insider, speaking about Healing Futures and its impact on him. And it definitely has improved his performance in school. And so that's probably one of my favorite stories, and it's from one of our very first cases. Sorry to be so long-winded with that.
No, that was perfect. And thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I think it's a very powerful story.
Yeah.
And so not to rush us along here, but I do want to make sure we get to a handful of audience questions. There's a couple here that are specific about the Healing Futures program, and then I think there's one great, more generic one or more general one that'll close us out. So the first one comes from Amy Price. She says, love this, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about who's eligible for the Healing Futures program, specifically which harms, right, would be eligible for the program? And then let me try not to link too many questions here, but as a follow-up, can police or probation refer directly without involving the district attorney? And does the process still happen if the harmed person does not want to participate? So to anybody who wants to answer that question, or questions, I should say, please go ahead.
Those are all really good questions. It's probably easier to just get into what is not eligible. So as I mentioned earlier, gun cases, any kind of offense involving a firearm, homicides aren't eligible, or any kind of shootings. But everything else pretty much is, but the bulk of the cases we've been getting almost exclusively are assaults that don't include a weapon, and auto theft. Those are the two main cases we seem to be getting. If the person harmed chooses not to participate, and that comes after, a Herculean effort on our part to get them to participate. But if at the end they choose not to, the young person is still able to move through our program without that and successfully complete it. So we'll still have them do all the restorative community conference sessions. They'll still craft an apology letter. We'll have an RCC with community members and their supporters there. They'll read the letter out loud and still have a restorative plan that they will have to complete afterwards. So they'll go through the whole process, just minus the person harmed. But we, of course, prefer for everyone to be at the table so that that true healing that Ghani described can occur.
Thank you, Felix.
Mark, I would only add that sexual assault cases and drug cases are also not yet eligible. So we're working on that.
Helpful to know. So I'm going to see if we can do 2 more questions in just like 60 seconds or less, because they're really fantastic. We've of course now gotten a whole host of amazing questions. For the rest of you, we will follow up, I promise. But the first one here is, what would you say to people who generally support your principles of personal transformation, but again, they have that fear, right? They hesitate because they have this concern about public safety. Do you have any results or evidence, that the work that you're doing actually improves public safety, and especially, for the people who are harmed, their feelings of wellness and safety in their communities? And again, 60 seconds if you could. I know I'm putting you under a tight timeline there, but if you could just say something about that.
I think that's the perfect setup for Hannah, who was going to speak about the broader impact in the city of Healing Futures. Does that make sense, Hannah?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Ghani. One of the things that I'm looking into with my report is cases of recidivism. And so, we can show that if somebody goes through a restorative justice process, they are well, right now, let's say Healing Futures, anybody who has completed Healing Futures has a 0 rate of recidivism. And that then increases the less that they are involved in some kind of process like this. So if somebody only enrolled in Healing Futures and did a couple of sessions, they're still much less likely to recidivate than somebody who had no kind of involvement in this kind of program. And so you can see that across the board in all kinds of restorative justice programs throughout the country. Same thing in terms of savings and resources, that restorative justice processes are a lot more efficient in being able to connect people with the resources that they actually need without spending the same amount of money. And there is still time and effort that takes into it, but it's also used a little bit more efficiently. So when we're thinking about what the benefits are with restorative justice versus the criminal justice system, we can also see that effect with people's families, with their communities, with their involvement and interest that also continue to ripple out in more positive ways as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. All right, final question here, and then we'll move us into our closing segment. Again, I think we've talked about this a little bit at this point, or quite a lot at this point, but there are just so many misconceptions about youth-led organizations, youth-centric organizations. This is for anyone. What do you wish foundations, city leadership, other nonprofits, other organizations as a whole, what do you wish they understood about the youth-led model that your organization, that YASP, utilizes? It's a tough question, I know, sorry.
I can jump in, and if Mai or Jet or Zakir especially want to add anything. I just wish that more funders understood that. First of all, I think that if we want young people, if we want to be building movements that are about young people going through transformation processes, young people being part of creating community safety, that can't happen if young people aren't driving that work. It's not going to. Organizations that are only interacting with young people as clients or as participants are not going to be able to drive the work that is going to actually change the possibilities for young people in Philadelphia, and actually create a different kind of youth leadership citywide that we want to see, and that people claim to want to see in the city, of young people stepping up and leading the city in a different direction. And also that young people who are in an organization like YASP are getting lots of training and support to be able to learn how to talk to funders, how to talk to legislators, how to talk to city council, how to understand how the legislative process works, and take this work really seriously. I think that's maybe the biggest thing, is that the young people who are part of our work take the work that we're doing incredibly seriously and are deeply committed to it. And I don't know that people outside of the work have a full understanding of that.
Anyone else before we close out?
Yeah,
I can add to that too. I would want them to know that at the end of the day, for me, for example, there's no telling where I would be, where I'd be working, anything, if it wasn't for this organization. Like, I actually feel like I have a voice here. I'm a part of something big, and it's like a family. And we do so much. Like, it's like I said before, so many things that I wouldn't be comfortable with doing if it wasn't for being a leader in this organization. So me being able just to lead and learn at the same time, like it has been doing a lot of helping for me.
Thank you, Jetson. And I'll just say from Stoneleigh, it's been a total honor to support the work that you all are doing. We've only seen, exciting things come out of, your organization in this model. I feel like I can't go more than a few weeks without seeing, your name in the news, and, you all being at the forefront of trying to, produce positive change, not just for young people in the city of Philadelphia, but, just as a whole on the criminal legal system, the youth justice system, what have you. So it's been, a really beneficial opportunity to work with you all on this. So I'll just throw in that kudos there. So we're kind of getting to the end of our time here. Let me go ahead and close us out. I want to formally thank you all, for all of your thoughts and wisdom today. This was a really wonderful conversation. Of course, our time is always shorter than we want it to be. Before I let you go, do you have any upcoming events or other news that you'd like to share with our audience? And how can people get in touch with you? Funders, city leadership, or otherwise, get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about and support your work.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I know we're short on time, so I'll just say Zakir pointed out, which we should have said when we were talking about the Youth Hub, that our Youth Hub was on pause for a couple of months, and we just reopened last week. It's every Tuesday from 4:30 to 6:30 on Zoom right now. So if you know any young people or families who can use support navigating the carceral system, you can definitely have them join our Zoom. The information is on our Instagram, which is at YAS Project Philly. Instagram is the best way to get regular updates about the stuff that we're doing. Again, at YAS Project Philly. We also have an event that we're going to be holding at Vox Populi on April 25th. That is going to be the release of an anthology of art and poetry created in 15 years of YASP's workshops in the Philadelphia jails that we've been working on for some time. And the event's going to also feature artwork by young people currently in our workshops. And some other parts of our work will be highlighted. So save the date, April 25th, for an event that we'll be posting more about on our social media. And yeah, I think the best ways for people to connect, you can email. Almost all of us are our first name at yasproject.com for our email addresses. Our website is www.yasproject.com. We would love it if people want to reach out and connect. We obviously, this organization has grown a lot over the last few years, and we really need more funding support to sustain that growth and the incredible work. And right now, the district attorney's office would like us to take more cases than we have capacity for the amazing work of Healing Futures. So, any ways that folks on this call are able to, or know other resources to support us in being able to grow our team and keep more young people out of the carceral system and on a path towards healing and transformation, the better. So please reach out. And thank you again, Mark and Stoneleigh, for hosting us.
Of course, it was a real pleasure. With that, I'll also thank our audience as well. Thank you all for joining us, and please have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.